Hey there, family. Welcome to episode 5 of When the Universe Has Other Plans for You. If you're new to my channel, my name is Peter Gordon, and I'm a graduate student working towards what will be an eventual doctorate in clinical psychology. I also happen to be a life and a health and wellness coach, and I make videos on mental health, fitness, wellness, and everything I hope can help you lead your most profound life. And while you're here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell so that you're notified each week when I post a brand new video. Feel free to also share this video, like it, comment on it, and all that good stuff. So welcome to episode 5 of When the Universe Has Other Plans for You. It's the last episode here in March for Women's History Month, and I bring you another amazing woman. Her name is Titilia Ellis, aka Titi Ellis. She's a good friend of mine from many, many years ago. She's an amazing woman, an entrepreneur, life coach, author, just an all-around badass woman. And it was really a treat to sit down and talk with her about her life. And I also got a chance to surprise her with one of her favorite actors, Donovan Carter from the hit HBO series Ballers, graciously chimed in to the talk to surprise Titi. So thank you so much to Donovan for that. He's a busy man and he came in, so Titi was really tickled by that. But it was a great talk. Titi shared a lot about her life, some of the things she's learned over the years, the mistakes she's made. And it was a really sort of very eye-opening interview, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did in interviewing Titi. So let's get into it. Welcome to episode 5 of When the Universe Has Other Plans for You. I am joined, this is still Women's History Month, and this is the last of the series of phenomenal women that I'll be interviewing or have interviewed. Now I'm interviewing a very, very dear friend of mine that I've known for years. We had lost contact, reconnected back after close to over a decade.
Yeah.
This is Miss Titilayo Ellis, affectionately referred to as Titi Ellis. She is an entrepreneur. She's in the world of business development. She was in publishing at one point. And Titi, first of all, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I've known you going back to the days of around about, I met you in late 03, wait a minute, no, late 03, early 04, I believe it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
You met me at Education Week. Yep.
Yeah. It was a magazine that deals with education issues. And
Yes.
you were my boss.
I was.
You were my boss. And what's interesting is it's funny, growing up in Jamaica, all my bosses that I worked before coming to America, all of them were Black women.
Oh,
I only had one Black male boss.
okay.
And when I lived in Boston for 5 years, none of my superiors were Black, African American. And I remember saying to myself when I came down and I realized this was a Black woman,
Yes.
and what was phenomenal to me was and still is that you're a year younger than me. I'm like, she's more mature than me. What the hell is going on with my life? So that part, I never said that, but that part to me was really cool to see a Black woman in power, in a position of authority. And who sort of was on top of her game. So I was admiring from then, and then we kind of lost touch for several, like close to over a decade.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, and then we rekindled. So tell me what's been going on in your world these days.
Oh, well, since then, I spent my life being a marketing strategist, working in corporate worlds. And, I moved to North Carolina. I left DC. Went through a little bit of withdrawal from leaving DC.
So you were born in DC, right?
I was born and raised in DC, in Southeast DC.
Southeast DC.
Very different experience from people or some people. And so from there, I had ventured into entrepreneurship right before I left. Always been passionate about entrepreneurs. I always tell people my mom had 7 siblings, all 7 were entrepreneurs. I had no choice, but eventually get into entrepreneurship. I watched my parents with their own business. And so when I got here, I did go back to the corporate world and do marketing strategy, but I always kept my entrepreneur side of things. So I've been that full-time plus entrepreneur, mommy, getting my MBA, just pumping, just hitting hard.
And you had something come out recently. So you launched an initiative and I think an ebook. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I originally started walking, what I say, walking in my purpose with the Art of Balancing It All podcast. And it's intentional in that we develop content or we bring content to women that help them live better lives in all aspects, career, family, love, everything. So that sparked my purpose, right? It felt good. It's something about when you're working your purpose, it doesn't feel like work. But then at that time, I was going through my own trials and tribulations. And I started to realize that the things that I had started using to get through things for about 15 years, when I would say the first trial I ever had, I started realizing I had something there. And then I started teaching friends and I started telling people about it. And people started saying, there's a glow about you. There's this joy about you. And you need to tell people how you got there. And at first, Peter, you know how it is. If you're that type of person who wants to be in the limelight, I'm introverted. Somehow I'm always pushed into being in the limelight, even in my career. I was hesitant. And so I finally had to do it because my spirit would not let me rest. I couldn't sleep, all these different things. And so I decided to do it. And that started with launching a new brand as a joy builder coach and bringing out a first piece of content that I call How to Build Unbreakable Joy, which is an ebook that goes into 5 practices that I've mastered. I have so much more, but these are the 5 that I know are most impactful. They're the 5 that I know no matter who you are, you can adapt these. Because some of the things like exercise and things, some people will look at, okay, whatever.
Right.
5 that I know that will apply to most people. Most people can adapt them. And it has those practices, it has the resources to start those practices. And more importantly, it has some accountability worksheets in there so that you can truly start to adapt those 5 practices.
Oh, wow. And so when does the ebook launch? Or when
it
does that go live?
It dropped this week. Whew. My baby dropped this week.
Wow.
On
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
What's the website you can find it?
Titilayoellis.com.
Okay, and I'll have links in the description and all that good stuff, but I just wanted you to say it. The one thing I've learned, particularly from my own life, is to never look at the finished product or the evolving finished product, because we're never exactly always finished products, right? We're always evolving. The finished product is nice to look at, or the evolving finished product is nice to look at. But what I always want to figure out is the backstory, because I know that there's always a backstory. In today's social media age, we're very caught up on the glitz and glamour. It's like, we always think that somehow in there is this, you see people on social media, they're living the life, right? So I wanted to kind of pry, and you can tell me how far you want to go with this.
Okay.
But I'm going to pry a little bit. So tell me a little bit about sort of your early childhood. You grew up in Southeast.
Yes.
What was that like?
I grew up in Southeast when it was the murder capital of the world. And my parents actually were in a situation. My dad had started working at IBM. My mom was one of the first women general managers, foremans of the Park Service. And they both had the capacity to move to Prince George's. There was an era where everyone who made it, quote unquote, who were middle class, moved out of DC.
And for those who don't know, Prince George's County is one of the most affluent Black counties in America. Yeah.
In America. Yeah. Okay. And they had that option. And we were living on Capitol Hill in Northeast. And my dad, who I don't know how he was not a member of the Black Panther.
I remember you telling me that.
To be honest. But he had done sit outs at UDC. He was very active in the community. He was a little league baseball coach. He believed in staying in the community, and he decided that we were going to move back to the hood. And so we found this strip in Southeast, a neighborhood that's literally, there's one block of homes that ironically had 2-parent homes. If you went to the next block, it was, single. If you went to the next block, it was projects. Back, it was projects. And we purchased this home, and that was what my dad was determined to do. And so I ended up growing up in one of the roughest neighborhoods. I lost so many friends. It just builds this. It's one of those, you hear New York, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere.
Right.
You can make it in that time period, because gentrification has taken place. But in that time period, if you could make it through Southeast and get out, then it was a huge, huge feat. But I can't explain, maybe if you want me to more, but it was a different thing. And
and this was during the crack epidemic was really
during
big.
The crack epidemic. This is when you got used to seeing vials on the floor, around, or the bags. That was just something that I saw all the time. And so it created a hard exterior. I learned at a very young age. I've always been, because of my mom and my dad, who are, they're not to be played with, in their, I always learned I never wanted to be bullied. It was just something that I wasn't going to, in my head, handle or take. And I wore glasses.
You did. I remember the glasses. I remember the glasses. And it's funny that you mentioned this tough exterior. I remember when I met you, it was the funniest thing to me. It was the first person in an office setting I ever heard drop the F-bomb. Right. And I remember going, did she
telling on me?
And I literally rolled, because, I came from this sort of conservative, or another newspaper that was very conservative, religious backing, and it was very different environment. When I came that day and I heard Titi said, what the, I'm trying not to cuss on the podcast, but when you said, what the fuck, I said, my eyes rolled back. So that exterior, I remember this, quietly admiring it from afar, but to kind of interject that point. So you grew up with, that's where it came from. That's
where it came from. But I have to, and from the place that we worked, I think that's why people loved me, is because I was so authentic, right?
Very authentic, yeah.
They would come to me and say, I want to know what your opinion is, because they knew they were going to get my opinion.
Right.
Education Week actually was a place where I learned a lot. And that really was because of Janice Brunson, who worked there with us, and who's still a lifelong friend of mine. I learned
shout out to Janice.
Shout out to Janice, that I had to start fixing my face, because I wore my emotions on my face. And that was really, I was 23, both of us were young. We were responsible for multi-million dollars of advertising coming in. And that was really the first place where I started kind of, I don't think I've ever changed who I am, but I started polishing who I am. And there was a point in time where I did change who I was here, and I realized how painful that truly could be. But that was a good place to grow up.
Gotcha. What was the experience like for you? So you come out of this sort of tough background.
Yeah.
What did you do to kind of keep yourself grounded while going through that? Was it your parents? Was it something in you? What was it that kept you sort of on the straight and narrow, if you will?
I have to tell you, I didn't understand the dynamics of my parents or how powerful they were until I was in 12th grade and I was taking a law class. That's when I knew I was going to be a lawyer, right? Ballou, I was in, I always was in gifted and talented. I always was in college prep, those types of classes. So I took this class where we would eventually do a mock law case in a courtroom, which was so fun. But the lawyer who taught our class, he started talking about our watching the news and something we were talking about, keeping up with the news. And I just said, oh, yeah, my parents and I, we watch the news before we eat dinner together. And my dad reads the newspaper while we're at the table. So we discuss the news. And the teacher looked at me and was like, so every night you and your parents sit together at a table and eat? Then I looked around and all the class was looking at me and I'm like, what the hell is the problem? So I did, it was really, I had parents who were determined for me to be a certain person. They were determined that they were going to raise someone who's going to be a community leader. They were determined that they were going to raise a strong woman. Sometimes I teeter on, I would have loved for them to teach me how to be strong yet nurturing, but there, you know what I mean? And I don't think I don't think they could have told me nurturing. The nurturing part could have got me killed, not having it at that time, you know? And so, yeah, it was definitely my parents' dynamic. It was the neighborhood that they chose. I had friends who we all had our parents. They were very strategic in the way that they did and very thoughtful about it. And it was a lot expected from me.
So in a lot of ways, you know, we like to talk about the statistics, right? Like if you grew up in a certain neighborhood, you have these factors that limit your potential to reach here. Right. But the one thing I think we always don't pay attention to is the tremendous benefit of a two-parent household, right? And a two-parent household that has the same vision in terms of what they want for their children, right?
Yes.
And so so you went on to college. Where did you go to college?
I went to college after leaving the rough side of Southeast.
Yeah, Baloo, right.
And I moved because I was just stuck on I can't leave my mama. Some reason I was just like, I'm not leaving my mama. So I originally was going to go to Morehouse, but it felt like high school.
You mean Spelman?
Not Spelman. I'm sorry. Oh, the people in Baltimore are going to kill me. The one in Baltimore. Not Morehouse.
Morgan State.
Morgan State, yes.
Yeah.
Apologies, Morehouse. I know that is two totally different colleges.
Right. I'm like, wait a minute. Did she just say Morehouse? I'm like, Morehouse. Like, wait a minute. I'm like, when did Morehouse start letting women in? You know, I'm like, you're powerful, but I don't think you're that powerful.
Apologies to Morgan State. Apologies to Morehouse. Apologies to Spelman.
I'm sure they'll be okay.
State. And it felt like college. So, and I also was very big on, I didn't want my parents to have a large bill when I left. And so I went over to Georgetown, and then Mount Vernon College was what it was called. Eventually turned into GW, and now it's the Mount Vernon College campus. And I went to an all-white girls' school with ambassadors' daughters, you know, all princesses from Africa. Like, talk about a total different change.
So let's talk about that. Here is like rough ass Titi, who I know from Baloo with the thick old glasses.
Yes.
And who will like, what? Who are you talking to? No, that Titi hadn't come out yet. The sort of more still the authentic Titi with the edge, but still still polished. The Titi going into Mount Vernon in this new setting.
Yes.
What the hell was going through your mind at that point?
That Titi had contacts by then, so I long got rid of the glasses around 11th or 12th grade. So this Titi is determined to not be a statistic, right? So that for some time was my drive. It was how I navigated the hood. It was how I watched when I knew things were about to happen. Like I was always in survival mode. Like I was the one who could see that someone's about to be shot 2 to 3 minutes before and be out. So it was everything at that point for me was about getting out of the hood, not being a statistic. So when I came to this all-white school, I was a bit terrified in that I had experience with upper class white people because my parents had over 200 clients in Georgetown for their last. And these, for some reason, their clients were drawn to me and they would invite me to their home. So I didn't have as much fear as some would have had because I sat in their homes and talked to them. But I also had a perception that they were better.
Huh. Tell me about that.
Perception that a lot of Black Americans had. So I walked in there with a bit of a low self-esteem. I knew I was smart in the sense of where I came from, but did not believe I was smart when I would be compared to these other young ladies.
So it felt like you had, which a lot of Black folks in this country, which is struggle with, is called the imposter syndrome.
Exactly.
Which is this notion that if the person, you got into this space, but someone they're going to find out that you're a fraud. and you only got here because of XYZ, and they're going to find out. So you kind of struggle with that. So you struggle with that.
I struggled with it for the first year, at least. At least the first year. And I struggled a lot with, it's freshman year, you're meeting all these new people. They're asking you questions. Why do Black people? Is it true? And so you're going through this learning of each other. And I think at some point I remember breaking down and just like going into Southeast mode and saying to this group of girls that are, some of them are now my life friends, I do not represent all Black people. Stop asking me these questions. We are not a monolith. I'd probably say that with that word, but at that time I was like, we are not all the same, and I think from that point on, something broke in me and broke in them to say, okay, we're gonna look at each other as humans, and that kind of cascaded into true friendships. But what really boosted my confidence is when I started realizing I'm getting higher grades than a lot of these people in here. The ones, they're smart. And I remember Dr. Hall, who no one could get an A from freshman year. And he gave us a very hard assignment, absolutely most people C's and down. And he handed me the paper and I had an A, and I sat there and I cried. And and I cried. I literally tears came down my face.
Wow.
And I realized this is, I am special. I am smart. I'm just as smart as these guys. And after I realized that, and I think I needed that.
Yeah.
I often go back and forth about HBCU versus all white schools, but I think in my life, I needed that.
It's in a lot of ways. I know the absolute benefit of HBCUs, right? I live in DC. One of the most prestigious ones here in DC. And, but I also recognize that when I went to an all-white school and I had a similar experience, an all-white, because I remember now I came from Jamaica, an all-Black country. Yeah. 95% Black, into coming into a situation where I'm in the middle of nowhere, Illinois, and I'm in this program and it's all white, right? And I remember it was a news writing class, and I remember this professor, and this guy was tough, man. He was no joke. And I remember if you spelled a word wrong, it was an odd, you lost a grade. It means that you would drop from an A to a B. If you spelled a name wrong, it was an automatic F, right? And I remember the first week I've tried to figure out how would I fit into this thing? I'm not sure if I can write for this stuff. But anyways, it was a news writing class. And the second week I learned something. Just give the man what he asked for, right? And I wrote in my style, but really what he wanted. And I remember what he would do is every week he would read the best article. And I remember he read an article and he said, this is one of the best pieces I've ever read. Peter Gordon, congratulations. And this little, but here's the thing. There's a but there. It is always a but, right? A guy said to me, I'm not going to say his name, little punk. I'm not going to say his name. But he looks at me and he says, well, congrats, Peter. It looks like you can probably start catching up and having good grades like myself and my cousin. And I looked at him and I just said, thank you. I wanted to choke the crap out of him, but thank you, But in any case, I resonate with that story. So yeah. So, so your story resonates big time with me, and so college, what was that like overall? Was it a good experience for you? You mentioned that you kind of go back and forth between HBCU and all white school. Do you think that was a really good thing for you to kind of go through that period?
I think for my path that ended up being, for some time, being on Capitol Hill, working on Capitol Hill with, as you know, the good old boys club.
Right.
For my path, I needed that. But I caveat that with, I grew up in an all-Black neighborhood. I got that experience. I went to Ballou. We had one of the baddest bands in Ballou went to Europe. Our homecomings were epic. So I had some of that camaraderie and that you get in HBCUs. I still think that, there's value in HBCUs and that you walk out with this network, right? This powerful network. And I don't want to diminish that at all. But I think for me, and I think I would have been just as successful in an HBCU, but what I had not realized is my fear of white people. I grew up in a home where we talked about Black history and we debated about social justice issues and everything, and to the point where every Sunday turned into this historical debate. And so when you hear your parents talking about this oppression all the time, I had this perception that needed to be broken. I think eventually it would have been broken, but it's far better. It was far better for me to walk into the corporate world with it being broken.
So in a sense, it's, and I go back to my little title here, the universe needed you to go through that.
Yes, everybody has their different paths. And to be honest, my kids, I would love for them to go to HBCU, but they've gone to school. They're in North Carolina now. They've gone to school with majority white. They know this. They don't have that same perception. I make sure they don't have that perception. So I think they can go to a MAC HBCU because they need that experience.
Right,
so
right.
It really is how you are raised, you know?
Yeah. And I think in a lot of ways, I see your point, because in some ways, as much as I wish I'd had a little bit of the HBCU experience, I kind of believe, just like you, I needed to go the path that I had to go through.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think
you had that confidence when you walked through Ed Week. I saw that confidence.
Yeah.
I had that confidence that, I'm here and I'm just as good as you.
Right.
Just as capable.
Yeah, I remember that. And again, I had also left. I'd been so used to just being a minority for a period of time, for at least 8-9 years. That realm was fine for me, So that's so interesting, man. So T,
hello, how are you?
I'm great. Oh my gosh.
Man, thank you so much for watching the show. I heard you as a fan.
I am a fan. I've been watching since the very first show. Oh,
wow, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Do such great work.
Thank you. Yeah, we had a good time. It was such a fun show. Wish we could hopefully they bring it back like all these other shows. Maybe you do a movie or something in the future. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And I didn't know your background until Peter told me. I didn't know you were a football player turned actor because you were so good. I thought you were. That's what you were doing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I used to play ball. I played ball in college, and then was trying to play in the league. It didn't work out, and then they had this character, so it was crazy. I was like playing exactly like what I wanted to be in my real life, and so it ended up working out.
Oh my goodness. Well, that is so great. Oh, Peter, this was a surprise.
Yeah. Donovan, I appreciate it, man. He's way too humble. He's like, I played little college football. Dude was an All-American.
Man, this is just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Oh my gosh. So who's your team now? I need to know who your team is now.
I mean, NFL is the Washington Football Club. And then I like the Rams because like LA, we never had a team till a few years ago. We got two teams now, so I like the Rams, but Washington is my first choice.
That is so. I was born in DC and raised.
Okay, me too.
I'm a Redskins fan. I still say.
I know. But my mom lives in Maryland, so they all big time Redskins fans. Yeah, you got some random Cowboy fans out there for some reason.
Oh, we have to hate on them hard.
Yeah, have to. Yeah, my aunt, she's a Cowboy fan, so they be giving her a tough time.
She's so defiant.
Yeah, exactly. She's like that in real life, so it makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So for all who may not be aware, this is Donovan Carter from the wildly popular series Ballers on HBO, and he was Vernon Littlefield. Not exactly little, but I think they were messing with you with that name, Littlefield.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was Vernon Littlefield, and my boy that was my best friend was Fat Reggie, but he wasn't big at all. So. Yeah. So,
I hated that character, then I came to love him. I read the Reggie character. He was very, very
man,
good.
everybody hated him, man. Shout out to my boy Landon, man. Everybody,
Yes.
he did that just shows how good of a job he did.
He
They
did.
said.
I hated that
Yeah.
first 2 series. I wish all I wanted to hear was "Shut the fuck up, Reggie." You know?
Yeah, exactly. And Dwayne said it a few times for sure.
Uh-huh.
Yes, he did
Yeah,
for sure.
I think, but even when we was filming, I'm like, because I had to. It was my first, especially the first season. I had to remember. I'm like, man, this isn't The Rock. This isn't Dwayne. Because I'm like, London, man, you better stop talking to Dwayne like that before he give you the people's elbow or something. He gonna slam you on the ground. But he let me know, like, man, this ain't The Rock. This is Spencer, and fuck him. He worked for us, so he let I had to get back to
He's
character.
playing the full role.
Yeah, he's really good. Yeah, he about to be on one of the new Powers too, London, one of the new Power spinoffs like this summer as well. So
Nice.
Oh
Nice.
man, your story is like inspired, man, and I connected through Donovan through a mutual friend, Ashley. Shout out to Miss Ashley.
yeah, shout out to Ashley. She texted me this morning. Don't forget to be on the call.
Yeah,
I said thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And Donovan, you have tell me about your podcast that you have going on, which I love the name. I love what you're trying to do with it. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Yeah. It's called I'm Supposed to Be Here. I started it like last year. I want to say, like, during the pandemic. Just wanted to just do something. Wanted to talk. Wanted to engage with my fans, and just really use it for like current events, motivation. Like I like. At first, I was gonna change the name, but then my friend was like, "No, I'm supposed to be here." Like that just sounds good. Like you got to claim it, like where you supposed to be at in life and with your goals and everything. So I just have some friends. I just have friends on there, old teammates. I feel like me and my friends, we talked a bunch of stuff anyway. So I was like, you know what, we might as well press record and might as well let the world hear. So it's been cool. It's been nice to get back in front of the camera. So just I feel like it's just good practice and good to get my friends that's doing something else to kind of also tell us what they got going on as well.
Gotcha. And where do people find this podcast?
Yeah, we on YouTube. I'm on YouTube. I'm on the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, Apple Music. Yeah, all that. You can go. You can. I have Instagram at Donovan W. Carter. I got a link tree on there, so it's all on there.
Okay.
And appreciate you tapping in too, Peter. Man, we just met, man. But I feel like you're a friend forever now, man.
Man, listen. It's I'd heard about you for a while through Ashley, and I remember saying, she said, "Oh, this is a really dope guy," and listen, I am as far from Hollywood as they come, and so so when I remember when we talked on the phone and we hung up, I said, Ashley is just like his character. I call you the reluctant celebrity, and I mean that in the most endearing of sense, in the sense that you're not Hollywood, but you're Hollywood, but you're not,
Right.
Well, dude, because honestly, you never know what with people when you talk to them, and so
I
appreciate you being you.
Man, I appreciate you being you as well, man. I like to match everybody else's energy, so I appreciate that.
Excellent. Well, Miss Titi, you can't say I never did anything for you.
Oh my God, you made my day. You really did.
Oh man, well y'all enjoy. I didn't want to interrupt. I just want to say hello and say
no problem.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Man. Yeah. Appreciate you, Peter. Man, y'all have a great weekend.
No problem. And I'll put some links to your stuff in the description for your various podcasts and your various platforms.
Okay, cool.
And good luck on everything.
All right, y'all. Peace. You too. God bless y'all.
Take care. So now that we've gotten over the shock of you seeing one of your favorite celebrities, as I said before, you can't say I've never done anything for you now.
I can't.
You can't.
That was awesome. I really
yeah. But I want to go back and really sort of, talk about this thing, how like it seems to me at this point you're going through these things that have kind of, in a lot of ways, prepared you to go on a path that you didn't think, because your initial idea was to go to Morgan State.
Yes.
Right. And then all of a sudden you're in this environment that you're kind of used to, but not used to, but really needed to kind of go through.
Yeah. I needed that experience. Mount Vernon College was, and not to mention, as I talked to other people about college, and it sounds like your college experience was about the same.
The same, yeah.
Yeah, we had professors who, if you had too many semicolons in the wrong place, it was automatic 10.
Yeah. Yep.
And I found out as I've talked to people that, it was normal. Our papers had to be 25 and 30 pages long. And I talk to other people and they hear that and it's like, what? And so I went through a very strenuous process too. It was where I learned that I didn't want to be a lawyer, that I love political science, I love politics, but I didn't necessarily want to be a lawyer. I learned through the strenuous writing that took place there that I did it well and I liked it. And so that was where I kind of shifted my trajectory of my career a bit too. Even though I graduated and I worked at American Political Science Association, it was one of my first jobs where I worked on Capitol Hill. And that is where I realized that, hey, you've established yourself with other cultured women, but I still had this bit of a fear of that older white gentleman. And so I had to work through that. So it was like God was just setting it up for me to down all of these different fears.
Because I'm glad you mentioned that, because when I met you at Education Week magazine, you were dealing with a lot of older white men who were head of HR departments of school districts and so on. So that had unknowingly prepared you to be in that situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we dealt with all kinds of personalities, didn't we?
Yeah, there were some personalities, man. The school system is full of some characters, and
oh my goodness.
Yeah, from the teachers to the administrators to, I'm like, wow, it's a different they're highly intelligent people, but a different world. So I want to switch gears a little bit because I want to get a little more personal with you, because you're going through all these things, and I got to believe that, I don't want to say I got to believe, but I know a little bit. I know life wasn't always like so rosy and like you're banging through the stuff. Because when I met you, you had a tiny son. He was no more than a year and a half old at the time, I think it was, Xavier. And you were with a guy that I really like. We all loved him, Rodney.
Yes.
And I remember when you left, you were in the process of getting married. And then you and I kind of at that point, this was around about 05 going into 06. And then we lost touch.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and then I noticed later on that when you reconnected, like on social media, I noticed one, Xavier had grown. I'm like, where the hell did that come from? But I noticed Rodney's not in the picture, and that's fine. I understand people change and things happen.
Yeah.
But can you tell me a little bit about that? Because you guys were a really cool couple. I mean, like legit, you guys were like legitimately, Rodney was he was yoked up, muscle up, and he was, Rodney is from what? Rodney's from Southeast DC as well, right?
Rodney's from Northeast DC.
Northeast DC.
In Trinidad, which is just as tough as
and rough. And Rodney's been around, for those who will say, Rodney's been around the block. He's been around the block.
Yes.
He knew how to navigate. He was life of any part in any situation.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And still is.
Yeah. So I noticed you guys, can you tell me a little bit about what happened? Because I really thought you guys were going to be together forever,
Yes. Yeah. So Rodney and I, we met at the gym. We were both gym rats. We were his gym rats. And he was a single father of two. He had raised his two kids on his own. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to date this guy, right? He's not tight, type. But we ended up having a really great relationship, and we ended up having a child together, planned Xavier.
Right.
And we ended up blending our families. And to this day, those two boys are still, I call them my sons in love. It's my heart. But life happened. And we were a couple months from actually getting married, had things booked. We're in the midst of picking DJ lists. That's how close we were, because you don't do that.
Yeah, because I got an invite.
Right, you got an invite. Invite
a very classy invite, I might add. Yeah, very, very good.
So everyone knew. Everyone was starting the RSVP. Girls, chicas were getting their dresses and everything, but some behavior started changing in Rodney. And eventually I found out that he was battling an addiction. And it floored me because, as I said earlier, I was so into never becoming a statistic.
What do you mean addiction?
A drug addiction.
So Rodney, wait a minute. So Rodney was battling a drug addiction. Rodney, who's like super yoked up, like really health conscious, was battling a drug. Oh no.
Was battling a drug addiction. And
wow.
It floored us. It floored his kids. It floored his friends. It stopped everything. And for me, as I was talking about, I was so into not being a statistic in my life that I had seen so many people in my family, and I don't know if you can relate, but I know there's a lot of people out there that grew up in the drug era where crack and cocaine and all those different things were taking over our neighborhoods. Yeah. Something I was determined to never do. I wouldn't even drink. In college, I wouldn't do the shots or anything like that because I was terrified of it. I had lost so many family members and friends to drug addiction.
And here you are, and you have now a drug issue in your house.
And there's a drug issue in my home. And so I always say, when it first happened, I said, well, God, you knew what would stop me, right? That's the thing that would stop me from moving further. And so ended up having to take him into a rehabilitation center, and everything stopped. And I had to literally cancel my wedding 6 weeks before the wedding, and let the entire family know, and all family and friends know. And that was the first time that I was ever in my life hit with something that just brought me to a complete fetal position. This complete fetal position.
Wow. Because and that was around about the time where we just lost contact. And I mean, obviously I was in my own world. I had gotten married at that point. I was pursuing whatever it is I was pursuing.
Yes.
And so I think that, so I remember when we reconnected, wow, and then when we reconnected, Rodney's not in the picture, but you guys are great friends. You had moved to North Carolina. What made you decide to move to North Carolina?
So, what made me decide to move to North Carolina? So after all of that took place, right? We separated, and I ended up becoming a single mom, which
and you hadn't planned that. Nobody plans on being a single mom.
I had not planned on being a single mom. Our son had been planned.
Yeah.
It was never, I wasn't a person who was so bought into marriage.
Okay.
It became a conversation we both had, but my parents were never married. And people don't know that. My parents were never married, and everyone's parents who were married, I saw around me, were getting divorced.
Right.
So I had this perception of almost a fear of marriage. But we had moved in that direction. But I never planned to be a single mom. I hadn't been raised in a single parent home, so it was never in my mind as a possibility. So when I became a single mom, along with canceling this wedding, becoming a single mom, and I don't think people really understand the pain and the anxiety and the depression that a woman goes through when they become a single mom. It is earth-shattering to your dreams, depending on where your dreams are, right?
Right.
And so I ended up just honing in on my career obsessively, right? Just this is going to be where I'm successful while all the rest of my world is falling apart. And so that really was what took place when you and I kind of went different places. My career started taking off, and we ended up. I ended up moving at a fast pace.
Because you were at the Washington Post at that. You were at the Washington Post at that point, right?
Right, and at the Chronicle of Higher Education.
Gotcha.
So that was where I ended up getting so much of fatigue. Because remember, when you met me, I was 23.
Yeah, I forget that. You're right.
I was 23, and so by the time that
wait, no, I don't think you were 23 when I came.
You might have been 2 years later.
I've been 2-3 years, because when I met you, I had moved to DC in 2003. At that point, I believe I was 27, 28, and you were always a year behind. You were a year. Yes. You're born. I'm not going to age you. You're 1 year behind me. Right. So yeah.
Yes. So when you met me, I was young.
Yeah.
Within 10 years, my career was just skyrocketing. And I went from that 3-person team to eventually, part of a 20-person team, and was just constantly traveling. At that time, I had started doing my MBA. And
was that a way to mask what was going on at home, where you just buried yourself in your work?
It was one of those things where it was what I could control. Being a great and being great in my career is what I could control. But it also, when Rodney happened, it was when I first started therapy.
Huh.
After crying and tears and going through this transformation to a single mom, it was almost crippling. Like, I would make it through the day. I would make it through being with the kids. But, in the car rides, I was crying, just like screaming. And that was a time, and I tell in my book about how that is the time where I actually ended up finding therapy and finding the value of therapy.
Mm.
So even though I was using my career and being a mom, and I mean, I excelled in being a mom, I excelled in being in my career, to the point where I took off once a month just to be at a day with my son. Mm-hmm. Like, how dedicated I became to being a mom and to being in a career. And I know it's part of that. What can I control? And so since this fell apart, let's try. Let's fix it. Guys understand that, right? You want to fix it.
We compartmentalize.
I compartmentalized, and I found that out in therapy. That I learned to compartmentalize when I was molested in 2nd grade.
What?
So I have this capacity to compartmentalize and move forward.
So, okay. You
yes.
I love when I have these discussions with people, how they just kind of gloss over like things that floor me.
Yes.
And it never ceases to amaze me when they do that. And clearly you're no exception to the rule. You just quietly glossed over. Yeah, when I learned that when I had gotten molested, how I could. We don't have to go too deep into that, but you were molested. At what age was that?
I was molested in 2nd grade by the next door neighbor who was gay, who was my babysitter. So, that trickles into very, very protective of my kids, because it's, as you know, usually someone that the family trusts.
Exactly. So that sort of you took that mind, that self compartmentalizing, you took that into the same thing kind of repeated itself. Let me just bury my head and not deal with it. But therapy helped you to kind of
therapy helped me to see that I have the capacity to compartmentalize. And one who is training to be a therapist, that what that means is just you're kind of stacking.
Right.
Stacking.
Right. And long term, you're gonna implode eventually.
You're gonna implode, right? And I think that's what happened.
Okay.
That devastating thing happened to my family.
So then, when we reconnected, and this was the part like that sort of kind of came into the picture. So when we reconnected, we reconnected on Facebook, and all of a sudden, I see a new baby in the picture.
Yes.
right? Little Miss Bree. And this was,
Yes.
and we reconnected on Facebook, I'm thinking maybe 7-8 years ago. I can't remember how long,
Yes.
but it hasn't been that overly long. But I remember seeing this. And then I think when I went through my divorce, and I remember saying, you know, I just need to reconnect with people from my past, people that I admired. And I remember you were coming to DC, and you kind of and we said, let's get together, man. Let's sit down and talk.
Yeah.
When you told me, I didn't get the Rodney out of that other part until now. So
Yeah.
this is even more sort of, you know, I feel privileged to be getting this kind of scoop, you know.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not a scoop, maybe you've told a story before, but I'm going to pretend like it's a scoop.
I tell it in the ebook. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to pretend like I got a scoop, you know. But Bree's in the picture. Now, again, you don't have to go as deep as you want.
Okay.
Tell me a little, because I know the story. But tell me, let's talk a little bit about how Bree came into the picture, how that changed your life.
Oh man. Yeah.
And it's up to you how deep you want to go. If you don't want to go too deep, but so Bree's what, 10 years old?
Yes. She's 11.
11. Okay. And so now you are a second mom. How did that happen? Obviously, I know how that happens.
Yeah. Let's just say it wasn't planned.
Yeah. Gotcha.
It wasn't planned. So Bree she's one of those things that the beauty comes out of the ashes type of thing. She is my special child. She is the blessing out of the storm.
Right.
So, you know, Bree's dad and I had known each other since I was a teenager. And we had a friendship, a strong friendship at that time. And so when the things happened with Rodney and myself, he reached out. At that time, he said he just felt that there was something that was going on. But we became friends again, and he, at that point in time, I leaned on him, leaned on him to get through that storm. But there was a problem. He was married. So after some time of us being friends and you know, spending time together in ways that you shouldn't be with a married man, it started getting to me in my spirit, and I could not do it. So I know there are some women who can do it. Like I'm not going to sit here and say that there aren't women who are in those situations and don't have bad intentions, because it's true, as you know, that they do. Some of them do. But it started eating up at my spirit, especially when his wife found out about the relationship and when it started affecting his family.
But I want to put something in perspective here.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't per se, I believe the impression was given that they were no longer together.
Well, that was after I decided to walk away.
Oh, okay.
I said, I cannot do this. I remember sitting across from him in tears, at least almost in tears. I could not do it anymore. It was starting to affect his family. And it was just eating up my spirit in so many different ways. It was toxic. That's the way to say it. It was toxic. And so I walked away. And a year or so later, a girlfriend of mine, he had called my girlfriend and said that he was no longer married. And she was like, you need to get back with him. And, you know, I've been in therapy for a long time now, long enough to know that since you heal after a relationship, I want to be with him after he's left a marriage. He needs to go out and kind of heal from it. And it was funny because I was also going to North Carolina that weekend, and my girlfriend told him that I was in town. So nonetheless, we ended up connecting.
Because he lived in North Carolina.
He lived in North Carolina. We ended up connecting, and it felt like he wasn't married, right? It was very open. We were going places, doing things. But for some reason, and this is where I say your intuition is God's whispers.
Mm-hmm.
It was going so great. It was something that was just like, ask for the divorce papers. Like, he should be able to show you something, right?
Right.
I started asking, and it started gnawing at me. And, he would say, okay, I'll send them to you, so on and so forth. And then out of nowhere, I got this text from his wife, who was still his wife, saying that they were still married.
Wow.
And, I was devastated. And the only way that I could put it, because I trusted this person probably more than I had trusted anyone, is that it felt like it took me back, and I had to work through this in therapy. It took me back to feeling as if I had been molested, because that's what happened when I was molested, is that, I trusted this person. And that's what it felt like. And so it was devastating. It was devastating. And luckily I was in therapy to work through that, because I cannot say it was, if that situation didn't take me to fetal position, this would brought me equally, it brought me equally to fetal position.
So it just feels to me like these situations happen, and you were trying to find this healing thing. You held on to this idea of this guy, and then you realized, no, this is not really what I want. I don't want
this. Isn't what I want.
I'm not trying to be the other woman.
Yes.
And then so you said, no, that's not right. You stopped that. Then you then thought, okay, we've come to this place. We're good, because he's no longer with this person. My soulmate, if you will. And now you realize.
I'm glad you said that, because I did think he was my soulmate, right?
Yeah.
I thought he was my soulmate. I was starting to, this hard exterior, starting to become very soft, because I believe in when you're in a relationship with your partner, that's the person you should be able to be soft.
Right.
Yeah. So that all was starting to come down, and then bam. And, and then 3-4 weeks later, something like that, I'm at a hot dog stand. I told you this. And the like, oh, you're with child. I'm like, lady, are you crazy?
Yeah, I remember you telling me that. Yeah, I'm like, what? Was she some kind of shaman or shaman or something?
No. Right. She's like, no, your face, you're with child. I'm like, no, I'm not. And so I remember being on the elevator with a colleague and saying, oh my gosh, hold up, wait a minute, doing the countdown. And I was so stressed and so still in fetal position from finding out that I had been betrayed, that I hadn't even thought about my cycle.
Yeah. Were you still in DC, or were you in North Carolina then?
I was still in DC. And so, I can't even explain, you live this life where you don't want to be a statistic. You have this drive to be successful. You have parents who put all of these morals and ethics in you, right? And then, oh my God, here I am, the one who's been the good girl all my life.
Yeah.
And here I am, I'm the other woman, and also I'm with child.
So you found out you were pregnant, and man, so geez. Yeah. So you're all these things have happened. The very things you have been fighting to not be, here you are. In your mind, a statistic. Here you are, other woman, and now this other woman has a child coming.
Oh my gosh!
How did you get through that?
Man, I'm gonna tell you, my first response was that I'm not having this child. That was the first response. I'm not having this child. Even when I told him, I let him know I'm not having this child, even though he wanted to move forward, which floored me in a way. He wanted to move forward with having a child. And, I was determined that, this is not going to happen. And then I started hearing in my spirit that this child is special. And I mean, it was repeatedly in my psyche. And then people started coming to me and saying, last night I heard, or I dreamed this child is special. The exact words, the exact words. And I'm saying, what is going on? And what happened was Janice Brunson, shout out to Janice again. was taking me there. And I chose Janice specifically because, Janice doesn't play. She's straight.
She told me I was goofy the first time I met her.
Yes, she's straight New York. We gonna get this done. I didn't want anybody taking me there that was going to be hesitant.
Uh-huh.
And hard Janice goes, I'm not feeling good about this. I'm like, wait, what? I thought I chose the right one. Mm-hmm. And we're on our way. And she says to me, in so many words, if you can tell me you're sure about this, then we're going to keep going. If you can't, no. And I said I couldn't tell her I was sure. Mm-hmm. A decision that day. And I informed my family. I wrote a note to my family, letting them know what my decision was, that I needed them to be a village that surrounded me, and that I was going to keep my promise to my mom, that I was going to also get my MBA, which I did after her. And I decided I was going to have a peaceful pregnancy right then and there. I wanted her to have a womb that was peaceful. And so that's what I did.
Wow.
I compartmentalized what I had learned and focused solely on this vessel, and focused on my son and him being a great brother and how we were going to get past this. After the birth, everything, he had to come back into my life. Things happened that should not have happened. And I ended up everything that I had suppressed. This is why I want to make sure people know you can't suppress things. Everything that I had suppressed, because I wasn't in therapy at that point. My therapist had stopped practicing. And after that, everything collided, and I got back into therapy. And I remember that was the first time I was close to actually having to take medication, but somehow pull myself out of it, because I was so devastated that I was now this person. Yeah. That people were going to assume that I was a certain type of person because this thing happened in my life. And it was a struggle to get through.
How did you come to this space where you, again, we're never in full control, but a space what I call where we work to sort of be in control somewhat. How did you get to this space where you are now? I mean, therapy was a part of it, but what else are some of the things that you've done?
Therapy was a part of it. Exercise for me was a huge part of it. Being able to take out all that I was feeling in the workout. But I also discovered meditation. I discovered meditation, and it just was groundbreaking for me. It brought out, I'd always been an active prayer person. I've always, prayed to the divine. But when I brought into meditation, I started feeling as if I was one with the divine. I started to recognize the good that was in me. Started to recognize the energy that is in me, that I am. I am, God is within me. All right. And this is not who I am. I'm all of these things, right? I am what happened to me, but I'm also, all this good still lives in me.
Right.
That meditation helps you feel that.
You didn't allow your situations to define you. You weren't defined by your circumstances.
Right. Yeah. And the therapy allowed me to talk through it. It allowed me to talk through all of the things that I was feeling. And what I realized was it wasn't about forgiving him. I'd done that. What the struggle was forgiving myself. By now, I'm really upset with myself. I've thought I loved the man here. This happened. I thought I loved the man here. This happened. So now I don't even trust myself. Yeah. So you're walking around and everyone's trusting you, right? Because, everyone comes to Titi for advice. Right. One of my coworkers, she was like, you need to be a life coach. Everyone sees in you what you don't quite see yet, because you are your hardest critic.
Facts.
So I had to, when I got to that point where I was close, and I can't express this enough, Peter. When you're close to a breakthrough, that's when it hurts the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you were ready to give up. And I was right there, right? And it was a struggle. And I realized where I was I gotta forgive myself.
Mm-hmm.
To give myself grace.
So you're in North Carolina at this because you had moved down to North Carolina.
I'm not even in North Carolina yet.
You're not even in North Carolina yet.
I'm not even in North Carolina yet.
So this is baby Bree has been born, and you're just working through this. Wow.
Yes, and I'm working through this, and I reached this pinnacle of peace, and it was because I had forgiven myself.
Yeah.
Because I had forgiven all of those who had done things to me. And I could have sat there and been fine sitting in victimhood. So many things had happened to me. I could have been on a blaming tour.
Mm-hmm. And nobody would have faulted you.
Nobody would have faulted me. I could have been just bitter and blaming, and no one would have faulted me. But you know what? That's the road that a lot of people take.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the road to peace and happiness. It just isn't.
All right. Huh. And so, wow, what I see is like, and what I like to do is sort of read between the lines, and there's always a story within the story. And the story with you has always been this idea of how you had these things that you had these plans, these ideas for your life, because the reality is you're a planner. You're very, very, very detailed. Mm-hmm. And the one things planners hate are people who are like ditzy like myself, who just kind of fly by the seat of our pants,
We don't like it at all.
You don't like it at all. We are the bane of your existence,
Yes.
And here you are now. Really, you have no control.
None.
You have no control. You've come to realize you thought you had control, but you had none.
None.
And it feels like when you accepted that, and I realized that, this ain't my fault. It's life has a way of happening.
Yeah.
And I can work through this.
And I don't think it's so much as not my fault.
Yeah. Well, okay, right.
This is the role I played.
Yes, you accepted your role.
Learning from it. Yes, learning from this is the role I played. Because even for a while, I justified being in a relationship with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was he had painted some totally different picture. But no, I participated.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yes. And taking ownership in that I participated in this, and my actions caused this.
Right.
How am I going to heal this? You have to do that. You have to own up to your own shit.
You do. It's kind of like when I tell people, I made a video a while back about 5 tips on healing, how to heal from a divorce, or a painful breakup. And one of the things I say is I don't ever trust anyone. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them, which is probably not very far. I don't trust anyone who sits and tells me it's all the other person's fault.
Yeah.
They could be monsters. There was a role you played. It could be as an enabler, could be as something. There's always a reason.
Preach. If I am in the midst of meeting a man, and now I'm giving up my stuff, I hope nobody I date.
All right.
But if I'm in the midst of meeting a man and he starts talking about his past and everything is because of woman, I run. And I run because that was the case with my last relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know that that's an alarm. That's a red flag.
It's a huge red flag because that person is not self-aware.
Yes. And so that's how I learned it. I'd love to hear how you learned it or how you justified it.
What really was looking in the mirror. It was looking in the mirror. It was looking in the mirror and saying, okay, at what moments did I have a certain level of toxicity? Right? And in what moments was I complicit? Right? Because we like to paint this little rosy picture of ourselves that we're so brilliant and we have this glow. No, you don't. Shut up. You don't have a glow. Right? What you have is the desire to be the best person you can. And in that process, you're going to have some failings. And it's okay to point them out in very compassionate manners, in compassionate ways. And so I remember sort of going through the breakup and really sitting down and saying to myself, because you met me, I was always very much into my relationship.
Yeah.
But I thought I was the quintessential Black man, had no children, no whole bunch of no exes out there. But I didn't recognize that there were parts of me that were fractured, right? And so I had to really sit down and look at that. And it's a work in progress. Because you're never fully whole. You just try to figure it out. So that's what I learned very quickly, was that looking in the mirror allowed me gave me the permission to heal, is to say, okay, I made this mistake. What is the takeaway from it? So yeah. But I don't want this to be about me. I want this to be about you, because this is just fascinating to me.
No, but that was good what you shared, though.
Yeah. So your life has just been this laser focus on this thing. So you're almost like, and I liken it to like a duck on a water, where you look really calm and you're measured and you're moving. But underneath, them feet are like, So so really, therapy was a big thing that allowed your feet to just kind of calmly glide you.
Yes, therapy was one of those things that allowed me to, glide with wisdom.
Got you.
Right. So I was able to take the wisdom from the storms. And that's something I always prayed for since I was in high school. I mean, since 14, 15, when I first read Maya Angelou's book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, I always prayed for that level of wisdom. And I remember my pastor once said, be careful when you pray for wisdom, because wisdom comes through pain.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things I always wanted to do, is just let me get the wisdom from it. And that therapy took me beyond what I could interpret from it, because you guys invoke these questions that takes us further back than from the present, to hone in on the present, and then we become obsessed with it. And we're playing the present, or what just happened to us. So it allowed me to grasp, okay, I did this because of that back there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or I naively walked into this because of that over there. So it allowed me to walk with more of a grace than I would be. And that grace being not being bitter, right? Not being and all these things that come from where you're deflecting. You're constantly deflecting. So I think that's what it allowed. And I came to this crazy piece when at that point I had 3 of the things that I was doing, which is the prayer, the therapy, and the meditation. So I was able to get to this place of crazy peace.
So what was the decision that made you decide to move to North Carolina?
I'd taken off a year. My dad, I told you my career had propelled, and I was working 60, 70 hours, going to get an MBA, raising 2 kids. And my dad was like, look, every time I see you, you're tired. You need, if you're going to work this hard, you need to be working for yourself. And so I took a look. We worked at great company. That was back in the day when we were getting 13, 15% of our income was being matched into our 401k,
Right.
And so I've been doing that for so long that I had this, very nice amount to take a year off. And so I decided to, I had been investing myself, and I decided to take a year off, and I focused on, which is what I'm focusing on now, trying to build a business that would help women rejuvenate themselves. So that ended up me being off for a year. And then eventually you're like, okay, it's time to do something. It's time to get the cushion back. So I said I wanted to leave from DC. At that point in time, DC was starting to become gentrified. Cost of living was crazy. You're making 6 digits, and you're still 2 seconds from the hood. Yep. And so I was frustrated with that. And so I started looking for jobs in Atlanta, looking for jobs. There's 3 places in Charlotte and just other different places in Raleigh. But mostly, most of my applications still stayed in DC, and I sprinkled them around because I had just started getting open to the idea of moving. And out of nowhere, North Carolina called, and I came here.
Oh wow! So it feels to me like all of these things that you went through, they've led you down this path that was really not what you had planned, right? Because I remember when I saw that you were in North Carolina, I was like, what the hell?
I know.
I didn't see that coming, you know? Yeah. And, because you were so DC through and through, you know? Yeah.
I still am.
Yeah, I hear you. That is true. You do talk about, but yeah, so all of these things, and it feels to me so much so that what you're doing right now, though, and I don't like to say, I don't always like to say it, like you had to go through those things, but the reality is
I did.
Yeah, you had to sort of go down this path because it seems to me like what you're doing is, when I remember you sent out the idea for the ebook, I was like, that is you, because you've always been a very good writer.
Yes.
But it's
Thank you.
Yeah, but it's really connecting your purpose with your, I think purpose and passions can be two separate things.
They can.
They can be. Yeah, but it seems to me like your passion and your purpose are collided in the right way. Do you think so?
Yeah, I think so. So I've always been passionate about writing. That's why I love marketing, is because
right,
that creative stuff. So marketing strategy, and I absolutely love teaching entrepreneurs marketing. So that's still one of my passions. But this is passion and purpose. And it's just, when you get into that, it's so much more authentic. It's
right.
So yeah, all of this that happened is
you had to go through that, but the tough part is when you're going through it, it's hard as all hell, man, because you're in that mud,
Oh my God.
Or better, not even mud, let's call it quicksand, because it just sucks you down more and more and more.
It does.
So one of the things I really would be remiss if I didn't do was kind of dig a little deeper, because I guess this is potentially a little bit of my journalistic background, if you will, or quasi-journalistic background. But so you moved to North Carolina, right? You made a choice. You took a job, and it was a different life, and now you're a mother of two. You're a single mom. What happened at that point? How did you sort of manage all of that? Was the father now in your child's life at that point? Were you guys co-parenting, sort of, kind of?
Yes. So I moved to North Carolina, and it was a tough transition living in DC for so long.
Yeah.
But we ended up, because you always want your kids to have both parents. And so I did. By that time he was divorced. And so by the time
so he did eventually get divorced. So
he did eventually get divorced.
So the lie he told you that he was divorced wasn't true. Right. And then you found out now that he was now in fact divorced.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I moved to North Carolina largely because of, needing a job, wanting to move. And then when I got here, they were in the midst of divorcing and eventually received that divorce. And then, that was definitely a moment where, you as a mom, you want your daughter who has never had this father in her life to have a father in her life. I'm a daddy's girl.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a daddy's girl. So we did eventually try. We did try.
What do you mean try? Is this the planning part of you now trying to go back to controlling the situation?
Yes. And the planning part of me going back. And there was this part that thought, Mom, I'm sorry. Do you hear all that background?
That's all right. No, it's fine.
Okay. Sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay. This is real life, man. I'm in your home talking to you. So it's not like it's in the studio.
Yes. But there was a part of me that, loved him, genuinely loved him.
Mm-hmm.
even after all of those things had happened. And so, you know, we tried and we did not succeed at all. And it was at that time, and it was a rough ending to the relationship. That, just like in previous years, ended up with deceit. So there was a lot of things that I learned in that, is that trust your intuition. Remember I said when I'm 30, what I would have told myself at 30 is to trust your intuition. I definitely would have done it. I definitely would have done that. But you live and you learn. And what I found from all of these things that I'm teaching in the book, this mix of 5 things really got me to the point where I was able to use introspection, right? Because you can see in my path that there was some repeated behavior, right? Because repeatedly trusting someone who had proven that they shouldn't be trusted, right? In as far as it was concerned with me.
And also probably trying to believe you can truly control everything when really you can't.
Yes. And a lot of it was really trying to, I have to admit, a lot of it was really trying to set a tone for my daughter to see what I saw as a kid. I had to get through that in therapy and realize that, hey, a lot of what I was doing was trying to lay a foundation for my daughter, where trying to correct the errors that were made, right? That she was brought into this toxic type of situation, right?
Right.
You put yourself out there to fix it. And it was in that I had to like really get to the point where I had to step back and be introspective and understand, why was I doing it? How could I continuously put myself in this situation, right? I could say I was a victim of this and that, right? Yes, there's some issues there. But how did I continuously get into this situation?
You participated.
I participated. And so how do I not do that again? And that is where the introspection, and that's where the therapy and having this guide to take you through the introspection, to understand what is going on, to get to the core of, okay, I'm making moves not for myself, I'm making moves for my kids. Okay, now I need to pull myself into this, right? I need to start doing things for me, right? And doing things that's healthy. But at the same time, it also gave me a chance to put myself in the shoes of the ex-wife, right?
What do you mean?
What
do you mean?
Because what I realized is that what I had not done, and this was very early on, is that I had to forgive myself. I've said before that this was not something that was easy for me. That's why I walked away, which was the cause for the lie to even come in my life, right? He had to say he wasn't married. And so when you get to the point, you become this woman who's had this child through what was an affair. You have to forgive yourself, right? And in that forgiving, which was one of the hardest things I've ever done, was forgiving myself. It's easier to forgive others, even though people think that's hard. When I got to that point where I was forgiving myself, I also had to take note of everything that was done. You get what I'm saying? So the pain that took place with a woman and her children. And it's not something that people usually are willing to take accountability for.
Right.
But when I was able to do that, that's where I was truly able to forgive myself and lighten the load, this heaviness that you have in your heart, that you have in your shoulders, that you have in your demeanor. I mean, and then once I got there, I was able to be to a point where I could reach out, apologize, accept what was done. And now we've had candid conversations.
Hold on. Can you just let me reel it back in a little bit here? Because you love to do this gloss over thing as if somehow, somehow this big thing happened to me, and yeah, it happened, and I'm fine, and blah blah blah. So it's a testament to your growth, right? Being able to look at it and go, I did that, no big deal. You in effect, and please forgive my choice of words, but you in effect, as the other woman, reached out to the quote unquote wife, and you guys had a conversation and a healing.
Yes.
Can you talk
yes,
about
we had initially had a contact with him during the time that I was with him. And so we had initially did some contact, but then after, it was, I understand exactly what you've gone through. My daughter was going through a very difficult time with the separation. It was a straight stop in their relationship. And it really was to the point where, because she was in therapy, I was realizing that she had a lot of things that she hadn't faced from being in this situation. She wanted to be connected with the siblings that were her sisters and brothers, right?
that she'd never known, really.
That she'd never known.
Okay.
How can we take this from a toxic situation to a situation where we can heal these kids and break the cycle? And really, I commend her 100% for even being willing to go there together.
The ex-wife?
Yes.
Wow.
And so we have done what we need to do to bring healing to the kids.
What was that process like for you to sort of come to that space where you guys were able to, as women, sit down and talk and really this is some high level stuff, because I mean, I'll be real with you, if I were in her situation, I'd be like, I don't want to talk to you, but again, I'm immature. Right? What was that like? What was that process like?
Well, one, it was a bit in the beginning, you're nervous, right? Because you don't know how this is going to go. But after a while, it felt natural. Both in a place where we had done some serious healing, right? In a place where we had processed what was going on. Yes, you were a victim of things, but now how do we move on? And we're both very much mama bears. Both very much mama bears. And so we're about doing whatever it is we need to do to help heal our kids. And so it's I call it putting on your big girl drawers.
Right.
When I talk to women all the time, and they're in this midst of fighting over things with the kids and the dad and things like that, sometimes you got to put on your big girl drawers, right?
It's not about you.
Yourself, right? And remove yourself for your kids, for the good of the kids. And so that really, and I'm hoping, one day I'll be able to bring her on, perhaps on a podcast or something like that, just so she can give her side. But that is really what we said we were going to do to help healing. And it really helped my daughter with healing. And I can't say enough how much I appreciate that. And it's really, I don't think you can get there to that level without some level of introspection.
Right.
Just smelling your own shit. Okay. I have some shit with me. And that's okay. But I need to actually accept it.
Right.
Come to grips with it. And now how can I learn from this, become wiser, and do things better?
Right. The irony of this is the person who is anal retentive, control freak, had all these plans for her life, decided to give up the fact that she came to realize that she didn't have control, put herself in this vulnerable space to be able to connect with this wonderful woman who's obviously quite wonderful. I don't know her, but I'm certain she's wonderful. To be able to sort of let that control, because you have no control of how that person is going to react to you.
None.
Zero, right?
None. And she has every right
She has every right. To to break out the Vaseline and say, get away from, we're going,
because we realize that, there's been portrayals on each side of the person.
Yeah.
Happens in the deception.
Yeah.
And you start to talk and you realize nothing like what
yeah. And I'm not, listen, I'm not gonna bash the brother. I don't know him, but really what I'm really just and his role is his role and he'll have to deal with that. What I'm really focused on is just the beauty of that moment and this growth that you guys have had. And really the intricate, the devil is in the detail, and the detail is the fact that you came to recognize the control freak that I know, the master, like, things are going to run this way with the thick rim glasses. It has come to terms that I'm going to put it out. I'm going to step out there. I'm going to talk to this person. I have no clue how it's going to come off. And all I can do is just accept the fact that whatever plans I had, it's gone, and I just figure this out. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it sounds to me really like this, I never like to say everything happens for a reason, but I'm starting to believe that, that the universe has a plan for you. And despite this plan, right? But you have your own plans. But but it's gonna take you on a path that is like laden with obstacles.
Yes.
And you're trying to dodge them, but at the end of the day, the obstacles are really the path, right?
Yes.
And it feels to me like you have come to this space where you had to go through those things.
Mm-hmm.
You had to deal with all these things. You had to really become a single mom 2 times. Mm-hmm. And you had to figure out, how am I going to flourish in this space? How I'm going to work. And you are. But to me, it feels like you really had to go through these things. Do you feel that way?
I do. Do I prefer that I had not whipped them?
Right.
Of course. But, I have learned so much. I've never felt, relationships is a huge part of our life. You know that, Peter.
Right.
And so, you've always been like looking for a person for something, right? To help you feel better, to do all these different things. And I've never felt so prepared for a relationship like I do now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I have confidence in that I will be a great partner. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that is because I know that I've learned so much about that, being introspective, about taking, moving away from the hardness to more of a nurturing nature. And all these different things that I've learned just from being introspective, from evaluating myself, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I have an ability now, and with these 5 practices, there's a couple things. I'm far more introspective, but I'm also conscious of my body because I do a lot of meditation. And so I can feel emotions coming a lot quicker than most. You know how people say I went from 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
Feel 1, 2, 3, right?
Mm-hmm. All right.
Bring it down and come back and step back a little bit. And so that's the thing, that all of this has brought me to the place where I'm like, I'm confident. And you know what? I expect more from the person that I'm in a relationship with.
Yeah.
A lot of times, because we don't know, we accept all of these things, right? Because we don't know. We don't bring it to the table. We don't know what we truly need.
You don't know any better.
You don't know any better, right?
Yeah.
You don't know any better. You think all it needs is love.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't be there. I wouldn't be to this point where I'm excited about the next relationship because I'm so much better.
Right. But even more so, that even outside of the notion of being prepared for your next chapter, whatever that looks like, it's you're uniquely poised to offer this knowledge, this intuition, these concepts that you've learned. You are in a space to where you now can share that with people,
Yes.
And I think that's why I think like the notion of your ebook joy, your joy builder coaching movement,
Yes. Yes.
I think that, and don't get me, and I'll have links for all this stuff so people don't worry.
Yeah.
But it's I think everything you've gone through, as I said, has led you up to this moment.
Yeah.
And because your personality is such that you want to make sure that things run, you're also able to then push that on to people to help them function better.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that those are the best types of folks who get into life coaching and self-esteem coaching and just building people up, because you have real world experience. Like I tell people this over and over. Yes, I'm working towards becoming a therapist and going into the doctorate of psychology. Yes, my job is to help people live their most profound lives. And yes, I'm doing this at the age of 46. So I'm basically started my whole life over blowing it up.
Yeah.
But the truth is, when I think back, could I have done this at age 30? No. No, I was terrible and stupid. I'll be telling people I had no experiences. It's not to say people can't be good psychologists at 25 and 30. But I do think there is something to be said about having life experiences.
Yes.
That help you to kind of help you, allows you to see yourself in other people.
Right.
And it sounds to me like that's this thing for you. You can see yourself, you can see the mistakes people make because you saw yourself doing those things.
Yes.
You're trying to help women kind of not go down that path that you did.
Yeah. And I'm trying to help women understand that you're going to have ups and downs.
Yeah.
It's not some fake reality where you're going to always have joy. But in order to have that sustainable joy, once you come out, you have that level of peace. You have that glow, you're taking it to the next level instead of going back down, right? Because that's really what it is how you deal with it determines whether you're going up or whether you're going down.
Gotcha.
And is why I want women to understand, if you do the self-love, if you do the introspection, if you do these practices while you're going through the storm, you're going to come up higher. Right? You're going to come up with a clarity and with a healing that is sustainable.
And make unexpected connections.
Yes, because it's nature to do the temporary feel good. I temporarily feel good. And so I'm going to go out and I'm going to date and I'm going to have, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. I'm going to keep myself busy. I don't even want to think about it. Sometimes I talk to guys and I'll be frank now, Peter, that I told you, I'll be frank. I'll say, sounds like you haven't healed yet. And they're like, oh no, I'm good. I just keep myself busy.
Yeah.
Red flag.
Yeah.
Flag on the play. But that is the natural way to do it. And these 5 practices say, no, you're going to sit in it for a little while. And it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to be painful. It's going to hurt. Hello, that's life.
That is life.
That is life. But if you do these things after that, you come out with this crazy level of clarity and healing that you'll see it's all worth it. And it's all about it, because we're on a journey, and that journey is going to have ups and downs. It's just, how do you navigate it?
Yeah. And then you realize that when you realize that the check-in box business doesn't really work.
Yes.
Right. Yes. You make sure to do things to mitigate risk. Right.
Yes.
But you understand that checkbox is all you want, like you're going to find that as you check boxes, you're simply just setting yourself up for some eventual heartaches, because it never always works out.
It never always works out. Always works out.
Yeah.
You got to go with the flow.
You got to go with the flow. Yeah. This has been, there's a lot some things I thought I knew, but some things I didn't recognize, of course. And it's always fun to do these things because, ultimately, again, as I said earlier before, like, with Rodney, I'm sure, and he's doing well now, I'm sure, right?
Oh, he is excellent.
Yeah.
He's a great dad. My son lives with him now.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
They used to call us, what was it? Demi and who was she married to?
Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
Call us Demi and Bruce. because we just believe and do what we got to do for our kids. Yes, he is fabulous.
So yeah, and I'm good. And that's great. And you and the daughter, you guys are just living life and figuring it out as you go along.
We are. She's navigating some things, and mental health in this home is top notch.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's coming along. Yes.
Coming along. Yeah. So again, this has been fascinating. And I like to wrap up these things with I call it like a 3-part question, right? And the 3-part question, it's the answers might be the same, right? And that's okay. But I like to ask it in this fashion anyway, because it's the aspiring psychologist in me. I love to see human growth and human development in stages.
Yeah.
So I'll ask it in this way. The answers are the same. It's totally fine.
Okay.
Let's say what you have now, right? And what you have now, if you could go back in time and talk to a 20-year-old Titi with the thick glasses, if you talk to her, what advice would you give 20-year-old Titi?
Oh, 20-year-old Titi, I would say, darling, don't plan everything. It's not going to turn out the way that you think it is, and that's okay. Yes, you dedicated your life living this certain life, and it just may not turn out the way, but it's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. So be flexible.
Yes, be flexible. Be flexible, because life is not a straight path.
Gotcha. So if humans grow, we change. Every decade we're a different person. The next day we're different people.
Yes.
So you've now moved from 20, now you're in age 30. You thought you had life figured out, blah, 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 right? Yes. Now you're a grown-ass woman, all right?
I'm a grown-ass woman.
Grown-ass woman, exactly, right? So now, what would you tell 30-year-old Titi?
Oh, that 30-year-old Titi.
And that 30-year-old Titi went through some stuff, because that's
that 30-year-old Titi went through a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so that 30-year-old Titi was just starting to learn the value of her intuition, but wasn't quite aware of how powerful it was. So I would tell that 30-year-old Titi to listen to the intuition. I think I was 40 when I realized intuitions are actually God's whispers.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I would go back and say, honey, listen to your intuition.
Yeah.
Powerful thing. Yeah.
And the truth is, even if the intuition is wrong, it's okay. But work on opening your ears to hear what God, the universe, is trying to tell you, or your intuition, whatever you define it as. That sometimes you get it wrong, and that's okay, because again, you got to be flexible with life. Everything is a learning experience,
Yeah, it's like Spider-Man. He had those spidey senses for a reason.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now you are, and I'm not going to age you, of course, because again, we're just going to say you are like fine wine right now, right?
Yeah.
So, yes. So let's say, this is the last part of the question. What does Titi tell herself now when she wakes up, and and let's say before she goes to bed? What does she tell herself?
Oh man. So the first thing that I tell myself, and I got this from Pastor Andy Thompson, I have to be honest, I don't even step out the bed now without saying, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. So I start off with gratefulness. And then I go on to brush my teeth, and I have the 4 agreements, do never assume anything, always give your best, all of the 4 agreements that it has there.
Paulo Coelho, of course.
Yes, Pablo Coelho.
I said Paulo. Paulo.
It's
Paulo Coelho, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes, and he, just reading that book and going by those 4 things have been a life changer for me. Never take anything personal.
Yeah.
That alone is powerful, right?
Yep.
Then I have a Proverbs on there. I don't want to mess up the biblical people and say the wrong number. But
that's okay.
About giving, and essentially you shall receive, and that's where I am right now. I really am in giving a piece of me and being very intentional. So when I go to bed at night, I go to bed to affirmations that I need to hear to continue my journey, and to continue in reminding myself of my intention, right? Of my intention. I walk in intention. And that really isn't, the intention is not for me. My intention is for the purpose of others.
Got you. Fantastic. And of course, I couldn't leave, of course, without and if that's any, what I'm trying to say is we're winding down this because you and I, of course, we can talk forever.
Ever.
We can't do this forever,
Right.
But what I love to do, my intention with this thing was to really sort of help people tell their stories, but really also help them kind of talk about the things that they're doing and how is it that what is it they're doing that is helping not just themselves, but other benefiting other people's lives.
Yeah.
So, so tell us the name of your ebook again.
Yes, it is How to Build Unbreakable Joy. It's 5 practices that I've mastered over 15 years that help you to build sustainable joy through self-love and introspection.
Excellent, excellent. And how exactly do they find that book to get it, to purchase it?
They can find it on titilayoellis.com, which is TITILAYOELLIS.com.
All right, gotcha. And I'll have links, of course, in the description here in this video. And on the podcast, of course. And do you have, I know you got some social media platforms. So tell us.
Yes. So you can connect with me on social at Joy Builder Coach. And that's on all platforms from Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or even Clubhouse.
Okay.
And also if they want to connect to the podcast, which is all about helping you live your life better, they can connect with us at theartofbalancingitall.com.
Art of Balancing It All. Is it on any other platforms, podcast platforms?
On all podcast platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify. And then also it's a website so that you can navigate episodes if you like.
Gotcha. So the art of Balance It All. Balancing it all. Because you're doing a whole bunch of stuff, girl. So you better learn how to balance it all.
The trick is that you can't, right?
You can't. That's the thing.
We bring to light in the podcast.
You do the things you can. You obviously do your due diligence.
Yes.
You don't just go, well, I'll let it, whatever happens. You do your due diligence.
Yes, you do your due diligence.
Right.
You know that if you don't feel like you aren't,
right.
None of us are. But
right.
Navigate it.
Right. But if things don't go according to plan, what this teaches you is that it's not the end of the world. You'll figure it out.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, excellent, man. And again, I'll have all the information, all Titi's contact info. I think if anyone sort of feels they want to work through some things, they should definitely reach out to Miss Titi here. Again, you can find her on all these platforms. Titi, it's been an absolute pleasure. You can't say I never did anything for you. I did come through. Actually, I didn't come through. Like I said before, it was my homegirl Ashley, who's very good friends with Donovan.
Shout out to Ashley. I can't wait to Ashley.
Yeah, she's good people. We connected, we connected with Donovan, and we just ended up vibing for a good while over the phone, man. I've never personally met Donovan. We just talked on the phone and talked for a long while, and I just was struck by the man's humility, Yes. And so, the ironic thing was when I told you I connected with him, and you're like, man, I'm a huge fan of Ballers. He's my character. Like, I love his character.
Yes.
So when I told Ashley, I'm going to interview my friend who loves Donovan, she was like, let me call Donovan and see if he'll come on. That would be kind of cool. So, so I figured he would come on, but I was tickled. Your reaction made my day.
Yes. And thank you, Donovan. Thank you so much for coming on. That was just, come on. I really appreciate it.
You can't, you can't. You had your celebrity moment, but I have a feeling.
Yes.
I have a feeling there'll be more.
You see me blushing again, right? This is not blush. This is cheeks.
Yeah. Well, listen, I have a feeling that you're going to do big things. I think that you're finding your purpose, your stride, and I think you're doing it. And I think I believe you've completely found it because it doesn't feel like it doesn't, at least from my end, it doesn't feel like it's work for you,
No, it doesn't. It's crazy that it does not feel like work.
It doesn't. And you just
I have to balance it, right?
You gotta balance it. You gotta balance it. You gotta balance it.
I can sit here all day and just like, do it. So I definitely have to balance it. But yes, it does not feel like work. And it's not for any type of profit. It really is just to bless everybody.
And that's when you're doing what you need to do. So listen,
oh my gosh.
I thank you. I thank you. First of all, I want to not just say thank you, but I want to thank you for being very open, because I think a lot of what you said, I hope will resonate with people. But what resonates is really if you're authentic. And I felt authenticity oozing through this video chat here. So I appreciate you and wish you much success and you stay blessed. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Take care.